Greetings! Welcome to the Mind of Brandon, and welcome back to another Sunday of Science and Spirituality. Today we're going to be talking about the science of Hinduism. And this is part one of a series of responses that I'll be making for the YouTube user Play It Already, who uploaded a video titled Eternal Religion / Science, Truths / Myths 1. And my interpretation of the point of that video is that it's basically an attempt to correct some perceived misconceptions about Hinduism while simultaneously making a case for the scientific credibility of Hinduism. Play It Already wanted to get my thoughts on this video as well as on some additional stuff that he wrote in his description section. So let's see what he has to say.
Okay, Hinduism is the first religion.
Hinduism is the first religion. No, well, to be fair, there have been different interpretations of the facts that have led to different attitudes with regard to when Hinduism began. But the mainstream academic understanding is that Hinduism started in India around 1500 BC, emerging out of the confluence of some earlier religions. Now, if Hinduism is rooted in earlier religions, that would make it kind of hard for it to be the first religion. But of course, there are those of the attitude that Hinduism started much earlier than 1500 BC, a perspective that seems to be based largely on the conflation of Hinduism with its predecessor religions, the religions that were ancestral to it and helped lead to its development. Kind of like how Judaism helped lead to the development of Christianity. But regardless of whether you think that Hinduism started in India around 1500 BC or in Europe around 30,000 BC, the earliest definitive archaeological evidence that we have for religion is actually from Africa. It was in a cave there 70,000 years ago that Stone Age people were making offerings to the carved image of a python god. So, this is the earliest depiction of a god known to us. Don't get me wrong, there may be some even earlier, albeit less definitive, archaeological evidence for religion from back in Europe. And this evidence comes in the form of a massive burial site containing some 30 individuals. And this burial site may be as much as 600,000 years old, which of course would be pre-sapien times. That's time prior to the existence of the species Homo sapiens, our species. So the individuals buried there are understood to be representatives of an extinct hominid species known as Homo heidelbergensis. Found amongst the remains of these Heidelbergs was one, and only one, stone tool, a hand axe that seems to have been symbolically placed there. This has led some scholars to speculate that the Heidelbergs may have believed in an afterlife. Now, if you're scratching your head wondering, how does the placement of a hand axe at this burial site somehow indicate a belief in an afterlife? Well, if you're familiar with certain religious customs associated with burial of the dead, this actually makes perfect sense. For example, we know that in ancient Egypt, the reason they buried their dead with certain objects is because it was believed that those objects would come in handy in the next world, in the afterlife. That said, there's some non-archaeological evidence that the foundations of certain religious-type thought processes may go back not just to pre-sapien times, but to proto-hominid times. This perspective is based on the observation of certain chimpanzee behaviors, keeping in mind, of course, that modern humans and chimpanzees are understood to share a common evolutionary ancestor some 6 to 8 million years ago. So this would put us back in Africa once again. Basically, chimpanzees have been observed in veneration of an alpha, kneeling before him, kissing him on the hand as if he were some kind of king or other supreme being. And the alpha has been observed putting on a display for a force of nature like a storm, as if trying to frighten it away, as though he believes the storm is some kind of sentient being that can experience an emotion like fear. This, of course, is indicative of a type of religiosity known as animism, basically viewing the various aspects of nature to be alive or peopled with sentient beings. Aspects of nature like a storm, the sky, earth, air, fire, water, mountains, volcanoes, even celestial objects like the sun, moon, planets, and stars. This, of course, is how we wound up with all this mythos involving all these polytheistic gods and goddesses associated with these various aspects of nature. Now, while I do find it understandable that ancient people thought these various aspects of nature were alive, in the modern day, we have a much better understanding of all this nature and how it works. We've pretty much debunked all these various animistic gods to a point where we can say with confidence that none of them are actually real. And this does not bode well for Hinduism because a lot of Hindu gods are animistic. Or in other words, they're basically misunderstandings of nature. And I mean no offense when I say this, but this is precisely why I laughed when Plato already said this.
And most of it is scientifically proven.
Most of Hinduism is scientifically proven. Yeah, I think not. Certainly not with all those animistic deities, but that's really only the start of the problem. But we'll have to talk about that in more detail in a future video. This concludes part 1 of the series. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with other people. If you're interested in watching my future videos, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you all in the next one. So have a good one, guys, and peace.